And what's going on, guys? Welcome on back to the Second and Short podcast here on the Mosaic MC Network. I am your host, Tyler Lauder, joined with Mosaic MC East Jason Teasley. Intro out of the way. Today, we are talking about 6 rookies you should try and avoid in your rookie drafts this year if you want to be a winner instantly. But the great thing about this is we each have 3 rookies that we personally do not want to draft at their current ADP based on superflex standards. All of our ADPs will be running off of Sleeper app, where I believe that's where the most common people are drafting overall. With that being said, each of us have our own list. That doesn't mean that we all agree, so we'll debate about some of these guys as well. If you're interested in this and you want to see the flip side of it, last week we talked about 6 guys plus 3 bonus features of guys that we think you'll be instant winners if you come out of your rookie draft. So with all that being said, instead of introducing you in, Jason, to talk about everything, why don't you just talk about your first guy? And it's going to be the first player that one of us is saying, do not draft at their ADP. And I'll give you the ADP. I looked it up for you. I'll give it to you once you say your play.
All right, I'm not taking Will Levis. I'm not taking Will Levis.
Who comes in Superflex, ADP 10, so simple, the 1.10 in Superflex drafts, the back end of first rounds. And every rookie draft I've been in so far, that's 2 quarterback. And this is exactly the range he's in. Go ahead and lead off why you're not taking Will Levis.
I'm not sold on him. I think he comes into a situation where you still have Tannehill there. You still have Malik Willis there. He's going to have to vie for the opportunity. And, if we look back last year, Malik Willis was the bell of the ball. Everybody wanted to expect him to go high. He slid. Nobody, there's a lot of has the same basically roadmap that we've established this year. So there's no lock that he's going in. So I don't think that you spend that you go up that high to get him. I mean, there's a lot more valuable positions you can get in this range over him.
All right, so 110, you're on the clock. Let's assume that most of the quarterbacks, top 2 running backs, receivers kind of going and everything. So what's your alternate? Which direction are you going?
I mean, I've got Miller here. If Flowers is on the board, I'd much rather have Flowers in this position, because he's in this range. Mm-hmm. So right there, I mean, Rashad Johnson is somebody that's moved up my board into, this being his ceiling, of course. But there's players that I think that provide you more value, in at least my opinion, than Will Levis right here. I think sliding Will Levis back to maybe the beginning of the second is more valuable, even in a super flex. But I just think he's got so much competition, and he's going to be holding the clipboard for a while.
So let me counterpart this. Let me give the other side of this and everything. We're not just all in agreement. And this will be the one that I think we debate the most on. I think Will Levis is fantastic value at the end of the first, considering the fact that in a super flex league, 2 quarterbacks rule in value. So if we're going to go on the assumption that, think about the quarterbacks that you could trade for the 110 right now, that you'd feel good about getting a quarterback in a trade. We're talking like Kirk Cousins. You feel good about that? What about like Jimmy G? No. Okay, so we're right there. That's our line right there. So if you get somebody of kind of that can score in the range of like Cousins, sure, you're okay. But vet. If you can get somebody like Jimmy G, you're like, no, I don't want that. If Will Levis becomes a starting quarterback and returns value, he should, in theory, at 22 years old, be worth more than a 110 straight up next year. The value will be there. This is if he's starting. Ryan Tannehill's in the last year of his deal. I believe all in my heart that the Titans were trying to trade up into the first round. So yeah, he's a second round quarterback, draft capital, but he's way different than Malik Willis, just on the fact that he wasn't a 3rd round draft pick. He wasn't a late draft bloomer. Will Levis has been talked about all year long. Before the college season started, he was hyped up as a 1st round pick. He fell. And there's even reports out that the Colts said that if Anthony Richardson was taken before them, they were going to go Will Levis. He was their next guy. And they would have taken him at 4. So had somebody traded up, to draft a quarterback at 3, we could have seen the first four quarterbacks go in a row. That's my thing there. Now, there are concerns when he is coming to situation as a backup, and we have to just see what's going to happen. Tennessee will be in a rebuild. The Titans, if they're really bad next year, they're going to be in position to get somebody like Caleb Williams or Drake May, who both are better right now. If they were in the draft, they would have been drafted higher than Will Levis. There are concerns. He only has one really wide receiver and Treylon Burks, and that's kind of, the rest of the team is getting older. They're going on a downstring. He's got CO at tight end, but yeah, I see the concern. I do think if somebody like Zay Flowers is there, you take Zay Flowers. I do think the end of the first is a very risky situation because it's more of like hopes and prayers and which side of the coin do you think will be true. So let's go ahead and move into the second player here. This is my first player to avoid in the draft, and we're going to stay with Tennessee. This is going to be running back Tyjae Spears. He's currently ADP of 21, which is pick 2.09. And now I hear what you're all saying. Okay, well, that's like running back 6 or 7. It's the back end of the second, not a big deal. You could probably, before your rookie draft starts, if it hasn't started, you could probably trade that 2.9 for an aging running back. You could probably sell that maybe for like Joe Mixon if somebody's like Alvin Kamara, if they're like and those guys, yes, well, older, still have, I believe, 2 to 3 years of productivity in them, and I think they will return almost instant satisfaction over the 2.09. What do we need Tyjae Spears to do? We need him to play bigger than he is. We need Derrick Henry to fall off the map. We need the Titans to, after Derrick Henry falls off the map, not reinvest in another running back later, next year or the year after that. We need the system to stay the same where they run the ball 300. There's too many things that we need to go right just for Tyjae Spears to be an RB1. And sure, we don't have to always look for the RB1 to be RB2, but it's not that he's like super risky or anything like that. It's just the immediate impact of an upside in value for this player, I don't see it. Even next year, if Henry's gone, you can't tell me the Titans aren't going to be a dumpster fire where maybe they don't run the ball as much as they did. And sometimes teams run as well as they do because of who they have. And I don't care if Cowboy fans get mad at me or anything. The reason why the Dallas Cowboys ran so much with Emmitt Smith in the 90s is because Troy Aikman was an average quarterback in real time. He was like an okay quarterback. If they didn't have him at quarterback, and let's just say Brett Favre was the Cowboys quarterback, they wouldn't have ran the ball as much with Emmitt Smith. They would have thrown a lot more. That's how it is. So when the Titans move on from Henry and Spears is the guy, they might be pass heavy with Will Levis at quarterback, or whoever. So what's your argument on this, though, against it, if there is one?
I agree. You would have to have so much stuff to go right for Spears to be matching his value. I think Spears is a capable running back. Don't get me wrong. He could put up numbers. His being back in RB2 throughout his career, if that. But you're going to be behind Derrick Henry, who, again, twilight his career, but you're going to be playing from behind so much. The run game is going to probably be abandoned outside of what Henry gets. So this is somewhere where you said get a more stable contributor, or even trade it out and get a pick next year where it's a better draft class, and you can actually add more value by trading out of this draft class in this position.
Now, let's go ahead and stay in the same range, but let's move on to a new position we haven't talked about yet. Let's give your second guy that you're avoiding him, and then I'll give you the ADP for him as well.
My second guy was somebody that is being boosted up draft boards simply because of his location where he got drafted. And that's Rice going to Kansas City. I think he lands in an optimal situation, but I just think that with Tony there, you still have Kelsey there. You're going to have a lot of volume to go around, but I just don't think that he can shoulder all that volume that's available with Hardman leaving, with Juju leaving. It's, there's going to be targets there, but I think that's going to be a lot of that's going to be ate up by Tony. And Rice is coming into a situation where he's going to be more of a burner on the outside. Tony's going to be more of your possession receiver, and you got the best tight end in the league with Travis Kelce. So I think Rice is being drafted way too high with way too many lofty expectations.
So Rashee Rice, second round draft pick in the NFL, is currently at ADP 19. So we're talking pick 207. So very similar range to Tajay Spears. So Rashee Rice, the thing that people will be falling into here is that it's Sky Moore again, right? It's a mid-day 2 pick going to an optimal offense that uses lots of weapons, but we didn't see Sky Moore step up right away as a rookie, which we don't always see. Is that kind of where your concern comes from? I mean, he comes from a smaller school, and then this, Rashee Rice comes from SMU, so it's not small, but it's not a big school. Is that kind of where your concern is, that he's like gonna fall in the same range as Sky Moore?
Yes. In my honest opinion, if you want a wide receiver comparison that I'm pretty sure broke a lot of people's heart, this is Nakeem Neal, that the Patriots took, that had all the upside and everything, landed in an ideal situation and just busted. And I think that this is where we're going to land with Rice. He's got all the tools to succeed, but just won't. I mean, I don't think that he's ready to play that NFL type game coming from SMU, a smaller school. You could put up great numbers at smaller schools because the competition level isn't up to par. Elite athletes are big fish in small ponds. But if you would take him to if you would have him in the ACC, SEC, Big 12, Big 10, I don't think you're going to see him stand out as much and put up the numbers he is.
The big thing here is that we have to look at this, and this is I'm not on board, but I'm not off either with this. So I understand your concern for it, because we haven't seen anybody that the Chiefs have brought in, and they draft, or some of these guys they sign, they just don't really click and everything. And that's the argument right there. Like, it's like there's a lot of expectations. Like, can they live up to it? Is it really going to be their guy? Is this who Mahomes wanted? He's going to throw the ball to Kelce as much as he wants. So, but he does have a very simple road, I do believe, to getting snaps. He's got to try and beat out Sky Moore, a rookie that didn't really get on the field a lot and everything. Mainly saw movement and usage in returning. MVS, who is a deep threat. He's not an all-around receiver. Doesn't have a great route tree. And then he's got to try and beat out Tony. And Tony's a guy that is often injured. And so it really just comes down to, if Tony's healthy, Tony's the best receiver out there. There's no argument, question about that.
Yeah.
But Rice could easily carve himself into a number 2 role, pending how the other guys develop around him. I've seen a lot of people saying that they love Rice in Kansas City, but it's the same thing we did see with Sky Moore last year. The only difference is Sky Moore was getting drafted at 110, 111 last year. So the value on Rice is better than it was on Sky Moore. I understand not wanting to buy into it. It's kind of, I think I know where you're coming from. It's kind of like, I'm not gonna taste the dip. If it's great dip, good on you. But I just think it might be bad. And I'll take the risk of being in the middle. It's kind of like, I saw somebody talking about this. We'll sidebar for a second. Somebody on Twitter was talking about, don't sell Javonte Williams right now in trade. And this all makes sense in a second. And he's like, you're selling him at your lowest value. And I was like, immediately I jumped on and just disagreed with it. I was like, no. If he doesn't return from injury and he can't show that he can play in the NFL, his value is going to tank to a 4th round pick. That's his lowest value. If you sell somebody like Williams now, Sure, you might only get like a late first, but that's middle ground. Will he pop and be worth more? Sure, good for them if he does. But it's also a 50% chance that he'll be worth nothing at all. So you take the middle ground. And so I think that's where like Rashid Rice is like, okay, I'm going to take an option on a guy that I think has a better chance at starting because of, better tool set, better not like just better fit with the quarterback, and more likely to step into a role early. My number 2 guy, I'll try my best. This is running back for the Jets. This is Israel Abanikanda. I said that, and it felt good, but I don't think I said that right. He's a 4th round pick. He's the 30 ADP, so he's 3.06 right now in drafts. I have seen him go in mid-second rounds. I've seen him go high. I don't get this. This is just let's just forget about how good of a player he is. He's behind Bryce Hall and Michael Carter instantly. They also have Z Knight over there too, who's still on that team as well and played really well down the stretch. So I get this if it's like, well, what if Hall doesn't like your turn? Like Carter could be on his way out, but he's still only going to get 3. There's so much competition in front of him that it's hard for me to believe that he's going to step on right away and be the guy in year 1, year 2, year 3. Breece Hall is supposed to be Joe Mixon, he's supposed to be a guy that is there for the next 7, 8 years as the number 1. So in the 3rd round, I would much rather mid-3rd, high-3rd, I'd much rather try and get a future second from the best team in the league and get 211, 212 next year and just punt this pick right here. Or I'd rather dive into a position that I think could have in 2 years could build up upside in like one of these tight ends, like the tight end 4 or 5 or 6, and take a risk there. I'd rather do a dart throw on a receiver like Nathaniel Dell, who is, going to be one of CJ Stroud's top guys and everything. I'd rather go that route than take a running back that I think is going to be 4th on the depth chart and in year 3 will still be 2 at best.
Yeah, he goes into a very crowded situation, especially with everything going on. The whole offense is changing around to tailor to Aaron Rodgers coming in, so that's going to be a lot more passing. So the load is already being taken off Hall right out the gate. I mean, he's not going to have to be abused as much as he would have with anybody else under center. So getting a running back like this that's going to be basically buried on the depth chart is pretty much wasting a pick, in my opinion. You like you said, you could punt, get a late second. I mean, get a developmental player like the kid out of Houston that CJ Stroud loves. Right here, if you could even get McBride right here would be a good thing here. I'm really high on McBride right now. If he's sitting there, I would much rather have McBride. Everybody talks about how he's buried as well, but you have Cook uncertainty. You had Matson sign a really weak 2-year deal, so there's value there. But yeah, I just think that getting him behind 2 better, younger running backs is just a waste of your pick.
Well, just guys that we're talking about that are getting drafted in the same range as him are running backs like Chase Brown. ADP is a little bit higher than him. I think has an easier road to being a starter for the Bengals. Zach Evans as well, who's behind, Cam Akers, who you hate on a personal level. Not even like just it's just because he ruined you in our Survivor. And there's tight ends. There's Washington, there's Shoemaker, there's Strange, there's I think guys that could carve into a role sooner on their teams than I think IA will. And so with that reason, I would rather just not take a risk there. I would rather just trade. I would even trade out if I was at 3-6 and he was on the board and he was like my top guy and I didn't really like anybody else around. I would legit sell this pick and like whoever my wide receiver 4 is to try and get somebody's like wide receiver 3, just like to move up or something. Like I would try and trade, like I don't even know how I would base this, but I would trade like him and like Cortland Sutton to go up and get a team's, I think, somebody that could fit in that range. Like a Tyler Lockett. I would rather trade him for like, him and a lower receiver for like Tyler Lockett, stuff like that. I would try and go up where I could get an aging guy and just use it. It's the same thing that I did with my last pick there. So why don't you go ahead? We went a little long. Let's kind of speed this up a little bit. Let's go back into the first round with a guy you don't like. He's got an, I'm going to just kill it right now. ADP of 12, so 112.
I'm not buying Trubonic. I don't think that he's going to be what the hype is. I mean, he's behind Kenneth Walker. Yeah, there's some success there. Walker's coming off injury. But I really think that this is somebody that, if on another team, would be a star. But I think him being behind Walker really limits his upside. You're going to see a whole lot of Pollard when he was behind, when Zeke was thriving, and you had Pollard. Right now, we talked about Matson behind Cook. I think you got the AJ Dillon thing. I think that's going to be where it is. It's going to be he's behind a better back, limited in his ceiling. But if he was on another team, he would have a much higher ceiling. So I think the draft capital there is the fact you're drafting, praying for an injury to a much better running back.
And he's going in the same range as, I mean, you already talked about Will Levis, but he's going in the same range as like Dalton Kincaid, Achane, Miller, Michael Mayer, Jonathan Mingo. All those guys are going in like the same range. And outside of Levis, who we already talked about and everything, but I mean, we could argue Kincaid has got an easier route to getting snaps and play time and being a big time guy. Same thing with those running backs as well. Michael Mayer, clear cut starter, and then Jonathan Mingo, kind of same thing. So yeah, I totally get the risk there. So realistically, if you're looking at guys around him that I think, they could probably have a better impact right away, I do see the it's a first round pick. You don't want to really waste that on a guy that's going to be in a committee right away. Now, there are arguments against that because, especially with what you listed, I mean, you listed 3 guys that I think ultimately carve up potentially at like a max, like a 20th overall running back, and can be like a late round running back 2 or like a high end running back 3. That's kind of the hope. Like, can he get 150 to 200 touches split with reception carries with Walker? Also, is Walker healthy? But there's things that you're hoping happen negatively to Walker to make this kind of work out. So I get not wanting to take the dip here. I'm not a fan of the landing spot. I'm a fan of the player. Great skill set, but it's just, yeah, I agree in the first round. It's a little too risky. Again, if you're at the 112, I would rather just trade it for a future first straight up and hope that I get a better landing up there. And with the final player, we're going to talk about quarterback Hendon Hooker. Now, Jason stepped away and everything, so I'm just going to finish this off. I'm not a fan of buying him right now at ADP of 20. That's going at pick 2.08. Probably going a little bit higher, especially if we see somebody like Will Levis sneak up in the draft in their superflex leagues or 2 quarterback. Here's my thing. He's already, let's talk about the things that everybody talks about. We all talk about how is his age, right? He's also a 3rd round draft pick, which is the hit rate is even lower for them. On top of that, he's behind Jared Goff, who I thought had a fantastic season with the Detroit Lions. And if them moving up, I mean, they were an 8 and 9 win team. Let's just play through a scenario. The Detroit Lions, as we're all kind of saying and predicting right now, are going to be a playoff team next year. So if Jared Goff takes this team to 8 and 9 and then takes them to like 10 and 7, why would they give up on him? Because of an upside of Hendon Hooker, who's 3 years younger. That's it. By year 3, Hendon Hooker might take over, but that's such a long time for an investment on a guy that's going to sit on your taxi for a while and isn't going to return value right away. Where I think Hendon Hooker is the type of guy where we see this all the time. If you don't draft him in year 2 going to year 3, he's probably cheaper to buy than he was to draft as like a mid to potentially high 2nd round pick. With that being said, just don't take the risk. Don't buy the dip. Invest in other positions. There are other guys. We kind of talked about the landing spot and everything earlier. Let's talk about guys that are going around him. Jaden Reed, receiver for Green Bay. I like his spot there. Some people we talked about, Rice, I think could have a potential nice carving out there. Sam Laporta, Jalen Hyatt, Luke Musgrave. Roshan Johnson, Tank Bigsby. I think Roshan Johnson is getting drafted a little bit higher than his ADP of 24, but Tank Bigsby, who I think is going to carve out a nice pass catching role in Jacksonville. I just think that there are better things that you can get for the 2.08 at ADP of 20. It's also a good trading spot as well to just move out completely, move back a couple picks, or just trade it for a proven entity and somebody that's like a low end wide receiver 2 to 3, or like low end wide receiver or running back 2, or pair up this 2.8 with Jimmy G and move up and go get Derek Carr or something of that nature. I just think that you could really invest this in a much better way than having a guy that is probably locked into your taxi squad for 2 to 3 years. And with all that being said, that is it for us here today on Second and Short, the Mosaic MC Network. We talked about 6 players, 3 that I'm just out of in the drafts, and 3 that Jason's out of as well. Make sure you guys check us out, all of our TikToks, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have stuff going on. We're trying to get to 500 on Twitter. We're trying to, get to 200 on YouTube. So come join us there. We have daily reels and shorts and videos and everything going up. So come join on if you want some more help for Dynasty football, NFL insights, as well as dive into the indoor football world as well. All that being said, thank you guys for listening. Have a good day.